The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Simply had to do something at quarterback, and that something is a trade for Joe Flacco.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast.
James, it's Joe Flacco for the Cincinnati Bengals, not a name that we discussed, an in-division trade, a trade with the Browns, the first that we've heard of a trade attempted with the Cleveland Browns since Sashi Brown tanked the A.J. McCarron trade years ago. What was your first reaction to seeing the name Joe Flacco?
A couple of things. One, surprised because it was in division, but certainly when you look, and I looked at like just the options, there aren't many teams that would be willing to trade their backup because they're contenders and because they don't want to be in the position the Bengals are in now where they're scrambling. And so I just don't think there were many options out there. Joe Flacco is certainly one where you look at that Browns quarterback room and they clearly want to get those rookies involved, and it makes sense. And they weren't able to strike lightning in a bottle with Flacco like they did a few years ago in 2023 when they made the playoffs. And I think that was pretty clear. And so it made sense for every reason from a trade possibility outside of the division part. And shocker, Mike Brown isn't necessarily a big Browns fan since all of the family history there. And so that's why these interdivision trades are, I wouldn't say common, but they've become more common over the past few years. But I never really wrap my head around or think about Bengals Browns because there's just so much history. And yet they decided to make a move. And it's a move that, as we were recording, it's official now. The Bengals, they plan on starting Joe Flacco Sunday in Green Bay. So he's going to make his Bengals debut right away, hit the ground running here. He's less than 2 years younger than Zach Taylor. And so that might be part of it too, is they think he's a veteran, someone that completed nearly 65% of his passes last year, is a fast learner, and can hit the ground running with the Bengals. There's a lot of layers to this, Jake. But yeah, that first one, it is surprising to see them make a deal with the Browns. But when you look at Joe Flacco, the player, and his experience, I get why they would be willing to go that route, especially when you look at the cost.
He played against the Bengals in week one, played pretty well in that game. He was the victim of a ton of drops. The Browns are dropping 10% of the passes thrown their way this year, which is kind of crazy. That was a drop rate for Joe Flacco in Cleveland. He's obviously played for a bunch of teams in recent years and has played partial seasons for a bunch of teams in recent years. Was pretty solid for Indianapolis last year. Was pretty solid for Cleveland 2 years ago. Is another year later now. Was pretty solid against the Bengals in week one. Can't really move all that well, and is going to be in Cincinnati as he was in Cleveland behind a pretty bad defensive or offensive line. He was being pressured on 40% of his dropbacks in Cleveland. And when he was pressured, that's when things really went haywire for Flacco, really embracing the YOLO life when he was pressured. He had a 6% big time throw rate, according to PFF, and a 6.6% turnover worthy play rate when he was under pressure with the Browns. The yards per attempt numbers, not very good. The Cleveland offense, obviously limited by its offensive line, limited by its weapons. They had some good tight ends, the receivers, leaving a lot to be desired. And like I said, those drops really hurting him. And overall, like, take the Cincinnati game for Flacco for an example. He was a bit unlucky with some of the interceptions. He has thrown 6 interceptions this year, but a little bit of that, at least against the Bengals in particular, was some bad luck and some bad bounces and some bad receiver play that led to that. So there's all that about Joe Flacco. But to me, this comes back to, James, the idea that they saw Jake Browning and finally decided enough is enough. And you heard that from Zach Taylor in his post-game and Monday pressers, that they're considering options. The way that they're turning the ball over isn't okay. And I think the fact that Jake Browning made it through that entire game tells you what they think about their other QB options. Mike White was also released as part of this series of moves from the Bengals on Tuesday, they had to do something. They could not continue to just throw Jake Browning to the wolves the way he was playing this year, the way he was playing late, the way he was playing inaccurately, the way he was playing just entirely breaking down at the hint of pressure, making rash decisions. Couldn't keep doing it. The whole idea here is try to buy yourself the chance that Joe Burrow can get back. Just try to find a way to give yourself that chance. And I think rightly the Bengals decided that Jake Browning wasn't giving them that chance. We'll see if Joe Flacco is the right direction.
For sure. It's a couple of things. First things first, Joe Flacco is going to turn the ball over too. But what they're banking on is he's also going to deliver some explosive plays. Like, you can deal with some turnovers if you also get touchdowns with them. And Jake Browning, the only time he's thrown a touchdown as a starter for this team is when they were already out of the game. And in his 3 starts being outscored 113-37 with that fourth quarter flurry, that makes it look way better. 21 points in the fourth quarter the other day.
And the Drew Sample garbage time touchdown. So
yeah.
like 28 of those points being in garbage time.
Yeah. I mean, they just haven't been competitive. And so, like, I see some people saying, oh, well, behind this line, or I get it. It's not perfect. It's flawed. It sucks that we're here. Let's be honest. It sucks that we're talking about a Joe playing quarterback that isn't Joe Burrow. But that's where they are. And if you keep trotting Jake out there, you're right. The season's over. And I'm telling you, I've tried to hammer this home, and I'm going to hammer it home one more time, because there's going to be so many people that say punt on the season. Joe Burrow is working his ass off right now to try to get back. He's told everybody that will ask, everybody. And I'm not saying me, because I haven't asked. But he's trying to come back this year. His plan is to come back this year. And so whether you look at Joe in the eye, or you look at Jamar Chase in the face, or T. Higgins, or you could go down the line, Trey Hendrickson, keep going and say, hey, we are going to, because I think the offensive line has done enough the past 2 weeks to give them a chance in the games. And Jake Browning has not given them a chance in these games. You had to do something. And if Joe Flacco is the guy, and I think we need to peel back more layers. I think there's logic behind this, but why they went after Joe is to do sort of the Russell Wilson idea. The reason why I mentioned Russell Wilson multiple times over the past couple of weeks is because I think moonball Russ and check down Russ, I think that could make sense. Maybe that's what Joe becomes. And they become this big play, man, Jamar's down there somewhere offense. And if he's not, then check it down, and there's going to be some interceptions. But if you can get your guys in space around the line of scrimmage here and there and connect on some big plays, maybe you can look up and beat some of these teams that are on your schedule. And look, Green Bay is a heck of a place to start, but then you have Pittsburgh, you have the Jets, you have the Bears, you have Pittsburgh again, you have the Patriots. Like, it's not like you're playing 5 straight Super Bowl contenders. Maybe they can turn it around. And so I'm not going to knock the Bengals for making a move here. And maybe Joe has enough with these weapons. These are the best weapons Joe Flacco's probably ever had. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's enough there to get the most out of 40-year-old Joe Flacco.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Baltimore Ravens had an extremely busy Tuesday, signing C.J. Gardner-Johnson and trading away Odafe Oweh.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
The one about signing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, trading away Odafe Oweh. We had our morning show, and there's just so much content and coverage coming to you every single day here on Locked On Ravens from that Ravens perspective. Jam-packed show today. The Ravens, they look to tip their hand on even more moves after their busy day based off of what they did. Also, Eric DeCosta clearly admitted a mistake after trading away Odafe Oweh, and we'll get into a little bit about who C.J. Gardner-Johnson is, as well as Alohi Gilman, who the Ravens acquired in that Oweh trade. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Here to dive into all the madness that happened in Baltimore yesterday is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com, as well as the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. And Q, man, I mean, look, I think we were both saying, whether it be on the Squad Show or you and I talking, that something had to give with this Ravens team being 1-4 with the performances we've seen. I know coaching changes were discussed, maybe other personnel moves, but certainly we figured out how the Ravens felt about this roster, because it looks a lot different than it did 24 hours ago right now.
Yeah, it does. I think this is where a 1-4 team that has the Rams coming up, then the bye week, and then you go through the gauntlet of your AFC North opponents. Like, the elephant in the room is you got to get better, period, in the discussion. Into a role, coaches will get fired, GMs will get replaced if you sit back and do nothing. This was supposed to be the win at all cost, win now proposition. That right now is where we're at in DEFCON 4. Desperation and desperate times calls for you giving away a guy who simply wasn't the productive specimen that we thought he was going to be. And you're getting some safety help that you desperately need, because you got a whole bunch of young dudes that really, the way you play defense, which is a heck of a lot of big nickel, if you don't have the guys to help you solidify that mainstay of your defense, season is over. It's done. It's over. So you had to make a decision. They made the decision. They got it done. We'll see how it works out. I know Freddie Jackson, a.k.a. Eddie Jackson, from last year, like, okay, he came in and he went. And it was like, what in the world? So just because you get a guy, I'm not going to be, oh, this is the greatest, let's grade it out as an A. We don't know until he comes in and see what he has in store. That's what I'm looking at when I look at this opportunity for these guys to come in and play.
Here's my thing about what this says, because obviously when you make moves like this, and when you kind of go over this turnover, again, it was only bringing in one guy, or bringing in, I guess, two guys, and then moving off of one. This, to me, I think the Ravens have tipped their hand that, hey, this is not the roster we want to rock with here. We've seen enough. We're going to make moves. And I think more moves are on the horizon. I think the Ravens have tipped their hand here, but I don't think there's a clear path right now. I think there are two clear paths, not one clear path. What I mean by that is I think the Ravens can go in two different directions here, depending on maybe how this week goes against the Rams or how they're feeling about their roster. They can either use, because again, with the Oweh trade, the full trade itself was the Ravens got Alohi Gilman and a 5th-round pick for Oweh and a 7th-round pick. They also cleared about $7-8 million in cap space with the move as well. So one path is to use that cap space, use some of your draft capital to go out there and swing for a big fish, swing for a couple of big guys. You know, you can make a couple trades, improve your roster, and try to go for it this year. Or this could be the beginning of what could be a fire sale for the Ravens. We know there are a lot of guys who are up for extensions. Oweh was one of them. They clearly did not want to pay him, which we'll talk a little bit more in the second part of the show about. But they could also, the path could be, this is the beginning of a retooling year, get draft capital, and make sure that you have enough in your locker room to maybe go and go about it next year. This was a lost year, which in itself is a pretty big failure. But I think those are the two paths that you are looking at, Q. Do you see it that way, or do you think there are more paths that the Ravens could take after a move like this and maybe stand pat and rely on internal development? Is that something you see?
Well, I think the defensive line needs to be addressed. I mean, that's the hugest elephant in the room. And you got to get guys on this ball club that can shore it up. If you look at, I mean, Travis Jones, as much as we want to laud him and praise him, all you got to do is just double team him. And then pretty much, if you're a good offensive line, everybody else will get the duo block, and boom, linebackers aren't going to do anything. Go ahead and, plug up whoever is that linebacker. Now you got a back that is going, 5-6 yards down the football field before he even gets touched. safety, again, he's not aggressive enough to play the run effectively. And so with that, you need a D lineman that can be disruptive. You go ahead and you have drop back passes. Well, we saw CJ Stroud, great quarterback, not an all-timer, but certainly his start to his young career has been a really strong one. But we just saw him march down the football field, literally march down the field. And there was nothing that they could do to stop him. I think that is the glaring thing when you look at this Ravens defense, their ineffectiveness of getting pressure up the middle and stopping the run. Like, you can't do that. AFC North, forget about it. The chance of even remotely thinking about a wild card berth, forget about it. Then you're talking about, okay, what's next? Somebody's going to be cleaning house. And it might just be Steve Bisciotti. If it's Eric DeCosta, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But if it is Steve Bisciotti, we know is going to be some cleaning of the house. And that cleaning means that both EDC and John Harbaugh going to be on the chopping block. So this is going to be where, for Eric, hey, bro, listen, I gave John everything I could. I cleared out some cap space to go ahead and make some strong decisions. Wherever those strong decision guys are, we need to go ahead and see it, make it, and then I gave it to him. Well, John, is up to him and his staff. He put the staff together. Now let's go out there and if it works, great. Then we'll keep him. If not, Steve, I think we need to find somebody else.
If I'm John Harbaugh, I am running to Eric DeCosta's office and I am banging down that door. Say, Eric, please trade the picks, because we need to win now. If he doesn't trade these picks and holds on to them and the Ravens have a disappointing exit, I think we all know the writing on the wall for John Harbaugh, which is likely he's not the coach of this team next season, like you were alluding to. So if I'm John Harbaugh, I am trying to get Eric DeCosta to trade away a first-round pick, trade away a second-round pick, because those picks don't matter to Harbaugh if he's not on the team next season. So that's the path that I think he wants the Ravens to take, as he should. But I'm going to leave it up to you, Q. I'm going to put you right in the middle. You got a fork in the road. This season for the Ravens, based off everything you've seen, based off the moves that were made with Gardner Johnson and Oweh and everything, if you have three choices, if you're the Ravens, based off your confidence level, you can either pick the path that is they make a splash for a big guy, trade away that draft capital, and try to go for it and revive this season. There's another path where the Ravens hold on to their draft capital. They try to get more capital, and they have a fire sale. They punt this season. Or they try to rely on the roster they already have, rely on youth, and try to win that way. Out of those three paths, which path are you taking right now?
So I will say, if you're doing any level of punting and keeping draft capital, then what are you doing with Lamar Jackson as far as his contract? If I'm Lamar Jackson, then I'm like, oh, okay, so y'all going to screw up my year that y'all gave me allegedly the best roster that I've had ever. Okay, well, then I'm going to shut it down, and, man, that hamstring just ain't getting better. So we don't want that. We want them to use it all. Use everything you got to get some dude to come up in this mug and be like, yo, I'm your game changer. Let's go. And if it's multiple dudes, clearly right now they're starting with multiple dudes as far as safety is concerned. But yet at the same time, again, D-line, and let's go ahead and get rid of the O-lineman. Get in somebody else from an O-line aspect of things. Like, come on. We don't have time to waste. This is do or die time. This is it. This is what you're looking at. And so I think that the bigger picture is like what is now looking like. And if you got the capital from a draft / you also got cap space, and you're also talking about, hey, Lamar, we want you to give us some love as far as the cap friendliness, then I think you need to be as aggressive as you humanly possibly can to not punt this season.
I 100% agree. The move is not to punt. The move is to go for it. Go for it now. You have Lamar Jackson. You're 1-5 if at the end of this week, potentially. Yeah, that's a really bad spot to be in if you lose to the Rams. I get it. But there should be no sense of fire sale on this team right now.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
The Chargers traded for Ravens edge rusher Odafe Oweh and traded away longtime safety Alohi Gilman. My first thoughts are, I love it, and they desperately needed it. But we'll talk about why exactly and what exactly Oweh is going to bring to the table, how the Chargers go about replacing Alohi Gilman and the depth that they have at safety, and also the job not being done yet, because there is still more to do on this roster if the Chargers want to salvage this season after their 3-0 start has been squandered over the last couple of weeks. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. One of the things that made me most excited about the Chargers getting general manager Joe Ortiz was that the Ravens historically, especially in recent history, have not been afraid to make splash trades, and more than that, not afraid to make splash trades in season. The Chargers went 13 years, basically, without having Tom Telesco make a trade in season or make it a big addition to this roster outside of Khalil Mack. And you're seeing already with Joe Ortiz last year, not only trading away Keenan Allen, but this year trading forward Odafe Oweh, that he is willing to make a move when he has to. So not the move maybe most fans were expecting or hoped for as far as an offensive line pick, but edge rusher was way up there as far as what the Chargers needed defensively. And per Adam Schefter, the Ravens are receiving safety Alohi Gilman and a 2026 fifth-round pick. Kind of steep. Chargers receive edge rusher Odafe Oweh and the Rams' 7th-round pick in 2027. This is a very significant move for the Chargers, and it shows that Joe Ortiz's relationship with the Ravens is paying off in a big way, because they're getting Odafe Oweh coming off of a 10-sack season in 2024. It's not easy to trade for double-digit sack guys in the middle of the year, but that's exactly what the Chargers are doing here. And I think it's not just the sacks that make this a good move for the Chargers. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has 50 or more pressures in back-to-back seasons, according to Pro Football Focus. And more than that, I think stylistically brings something that the Chargers don't have. They don't have a super athletic, bendy edge rusher that has the length to affect passing windows and be able to get to the quarterback and make them uncomfortable on a consistent basis. And I think when you look at obviously what the Chargers need, you're missing Khalil Mack. He's on injured reserve. He cannot come back until week 7. So you needed it now. But I think the exciting thing is, even when he comes back, this is going to be a guy that I think will have a big role, because I think when you're looking at what he brings to the table athletically, much more athletic than what the Chargers have on the edge right now, much faster than the guys they have on the edge right now. And I think the other part of this is, you know how he's going to fit. This is a guy that has been with the Ravens, was drafted by the Ravens when Joe Ortiz was part of that organization, but also played on a defense under Mike McDonald and even Zach Orr that are a similar defense, probably a lot of similar verbiage to what Jesse Minter uses with the Chargers right now. So the learning curve as far as how quickly can you get this dude up to speed, because you need him right now, should be a little bit less than if you got someone that was playing in an entirely different scheme. That's not what you're getting in Odafe Oweh. And like I said, the Chargers desperately needed help on the edge, because since Khalil Mack went down, it's basically Tuli Tuipulotu and everybody else. I mean, Tuli has been good this year. He has 4 sacks, obviously all in one game, but more than that, 27 pressures and 18.6% pressure rate, which is pretty good. Without Khalil Mack, that means the next 2 guys on the field the most were Bud Dupree and Caleb Murphy. I was down on the Bud Dupree signing when they decided to extend him through 2026. I didn't really understand it. The metrics didn't love him as far as the pass rusher goes, but the story was that he's a physical edge setter that, can do enough in the pass rushing game, but does what Jesse Minter likes him to do on the edge. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is a move for Oweh that happens because Jesse Minter knows that they need it, right? But 160 pass rushing snaps for Tuli this year, 4 sacks, 27 pressures. Bud Dupree and Caleb Murphy combined so far this year, 185 pass rushing snaps, 1 sack between the two of them, and 12 total pressures. In 2025, Odafe Oweh has 12 pressures by himself, and although he doesn't have the sack number, doesn't have a sack so far this year, I think that is at least in part because the Ravens have been missing Justin Madubuike, Nnamdi Madubuike, which I think obviously hurts when you don't have somebody pushing the pocket in that way. But also, they just have had a really, really terrible defense so far in 2025. And I think this move also happens, right? Because Kyle Kennard, your 4th round pick, has not panned out as an instant contributor yet. Like, he just hasn't. He's had 6 pass rushing snaps so far this year and has not registered a pressure yet. But Kyle Kennard was beat out in camp by a former undrafted free agent in Caleb Murphy, who was a practice squad guy for the Chargers last year. And this week, he was a healthy scratch in favor of practice squad edge rusher Cleveland Farrell. He's just not there yet. It feels much more like a Justin Aboigbe than it does, a Tuli as a rookie, or maybe some of these guys who have come in and had instant contributions. Justin Aboigbe only played 26 snaps or somewhere around that last season. He basically got redshirted as, a rookie in the NFL. And it's looking like that's going to be the case for Kyle Kennard. It's hard to imagine a big leap that he's going to make in season because the practices in season are so much more about game planning than they are about actual development, I would say. But when Tuli isn't on the field, the Chargers really have nobody right now. And that's basically what it comes down to. And I just think the next question is, as far as this trade and what the Chargers gave up, is this a rental? Because that's a steep price. A 5th round pick, I get it. A 5th round pick plus Alohi Gilman to get a 7th and Oweh back. You look at the Chargers' 5th round picks, and it's like, man, I really like when Joe Ortiz gets the draft in that round. Obviously, Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still. Tarheeb Still is a bona fide starting level player, and I think he's very good. Cam Hart, we're still kind of trying to figure it out, but to get even contributions from Cam Hart as a 5th round pick, I think is a steal, obviously. This year, you get a Rondé Gadsden II, who obviously should be out there more and should be more of a focal point in this passing attack, and definitely should be out there on passing downs, as opposed to Tyler Conklin, who had the bad moment last week. And you also have KLS, and I'm bullish on KLS in the long term. I do think he's going to be a viable receiving option, and I think just probably needs a little bit more time. But more than that, Joe Ortiz has already traded away a 2026 7th round pick. And now after moving this 5th round pick, you only have 5 picks in the 2026 draft. We know, especially on the offensive line, the Chargers are going to have to sink some serious resources into this roster coming up to fix some of the obvious flaws that we're seeing and some of the obvious depth that they're missing. I think the nice thing with Odafe Oweh is he's only 26 years old. This is his 5th year option year from the Ravens, who did pick it up. He is a free agent in 2026. But you have Khalil Mack basically mulling retirement every season at this point. I know his wife told him, hey, stop doing that. You're going to come back and play. And assuming Khalil Mack comes back and looks like the Khalil Mack that, he was before injury, he might be back in the fold in 2026 and maybe even beyond that. But he's an aging player. And what this is, I think, is a nice trial run to see if he's maybe the long-term running mate with Tuli Tuipulotu if Khalil Mack does retire in 2026. And I think it's nice for them to be able to have this, 11-game span, 12-game span here that they have, to be able to see what he is, see how well he fits in this defense, and see maybe if they can unlock something. Obviously, he had 10 sacks last year. He doesn't have a sack this year, but I do think there's obvious athletic ability there. I do think there's obvious traits that they like and also fit well with what Jesse Minter wants to do. He's 26. He's been a very productive player in this league basically since he's gotten into the league. As a 1st round pick, maybe the Ravens wanted more early on, but hard to argue with a 10-sack season. The Chargers only have one guy on their roster that's done that in recent memory, and it's Khalil Mack, and that was a few years ago. Bud Dupree has done it, but obviously he's not that same guy anymore. Either way, I like this trade for the Chargers. If it turns into something where they can get an extension done to where an edge rusher doesn't feel like a desperate need in 2026 in that draft class, it feels a lot better, because you know what else feels like a desperate need in the 2026 draft class? An offensive guard, interior offensive lineman, obviously, and some other positions as well.